Hey,
All right. It worked.
technology.
Right.
How are you now?
I'm good, man. I'm trying
Yeah.
to make myself balanced. I feel like I'm all big and shit. Uh, I actually have my iPhone. I wish you could see this rig that I've built. It's on top of a guitar amp, a Marshall guitar speaker, my it's insane. It's like the leaning tower of Pisa, and I hope it doesn't fall forward on me.
So
So,
it's going to be fine.
all right, bro, let's try and do this.
Okay. So um, thank you again for coming on. So we first met, you probably won't remember this, through a mutual friend, Carl Cox, in 2014.
I
You
love
were,
Carl.
yeah, you were at the IMS Awards, and you were about to receive the Legends Award. Do you remember the Music Summit?
Oh, one of those. Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what I found so interesting, there was like a bunch of DJs like me and electronic music producers, that how in awe they were of you, because you kind of paved the way unknowingly from what you started back in the 70s to where we are now. And it must be like an amazing feeling just to realize that when you came to Ibiza, the amount of people that knew your music, knew what you're about, and how your music has evolved into electronic music with using the elements of what you did.
Yeah, yeah, that was I really remember that moment well. Um for an old school artist like me, to be I don't even know how to explain it because I don't have the kind of ego that like, oh yeah, they love my shit. Yeah, I'm not that dude. but the first time I ever heard my music played back outside of a recording studio, I didn't have enough money to actually buy a plate or a reel-to-reel copy because that's the only way you could do it back in the day. We didn't even have cassettes yet. And so I composed a song called Everybody Dance. We listened to it 2 or 3 times in the studio. I was in Luther Vandross's band, so I got Luther and everybody to sing on it for me. And then I never heard the song again for about a month until I went to my friend's club, and he was not only the engineer of the record, but he also DJ'd at a club. I walked in for the first time and I heard my song um, playing after about a month of recording it, and the place was losing their shit. They were screaming as soon as the intro went. And so when I was in Ibiza, and I had this room full of people that were sort of recognizing me for my music because I felt like, strangers. Sure, I knew a few people, but that's not my scene, right? I'm from the other side of the pond. It honestly almost had that same kind of effect because when unknown people love your music, that man, that I've been chasing that high since 40 years. I've been chasing that high since Everybody Dance. And I walk into a room full of mostly strangers. Yeah, I'm sure I know Pete. I knew a few people, but
Yeah.
most people I didn't know, and they're like going, ah,
They,
nah, run,
they were
everybody
losing
dance.
it. They were
It,
losing it
it
because
was crazy.
it's because, like I said at the start, it was like your music developed onto what we're doing now, and like I said at the time, you must have been like, wow, this is like 40 years after you created Everybody Dance, and people are still playing bootlegs and remixes and edits of those records now, which is
Yeah.
incredible.
And a part of my history that very few people know about is that my rhythm section, Chic, we used to play breakdowns of popular songs and then go into a recording studio and edit those breakdowns into songs that didn't have breakdowns. And then we would sell them to DJs, and that's how we made a living. So to this day, whenever I hear Love is the Message, and I hear that edit that I did 40 years ago still being played to this day, the exact same edit that we made. I'm like going, oh my God. It's, you know what I mean? It's obviously my love of the simplicity of primal music that makes you respond to the groove and the beat. And then the lyrics and everything else, that's a sort of secondary absorption that happens. But what really happens is like, you know, when the beginning of Everybody Dance starts and they go, yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, that's how I felt that day. And I didn't even know how to express it. So I'm glad you and I just get to kick it a little bit now,
Yeah.
because I really am still that, you know, 21, 22-year-old dude. Um, well, who was that who made In Search of the Perfect Beat? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like,
And it's amazing now because you've got these brands like Glitterbox, where a good friend of mine, Simon Marlin from the Shapeshifters, who you know as well, you know,
sure.
it's come full circle again. You know, it's come back round again, and it's like, you know, you're finding that now the clubs are going back to songs again. Like, you know, it's not just techno and deep house and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of still got that disco feel to it again, and it's kind of come round 40 years, and it's relevant.
Well, you know what's really interesting is that because we know that what attracts us is the beat. We know that. We
Yeah.
know that's the thing that gets us, and it's something that gets into our ears and in our soul. But we are intellectuals, most of us. We are intellectual human beings, and we are searching for a message. So we not only want to identify with the primal factor, but we also want to understand the artist's underlying message. What were you really talking about? What was that thing that inspired you to make that beat? So that's where lyrics and the song come in. And what I love about creating songs on top of grooves is that you then get to express an extra level of, what do I want to say? Just an extra level of expression. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I think that it's all right here, you know, and in that groove. But the truth of the matter is that I have a lot more to say than that. And lyrics and melody and, you know, and just story concepts, songs. Allow us to do that as well.
Yeah. I recently saw a picture of you in the DJ booth at Studio 54. And was there ever that moment in your head where you were watching the guys playing, thinking, I don't mind trying this. I want to try DJing for a bit?
No, 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 because see, I come from the world of, so there was a word that became very popular at the beginning of hip hop, and the same thing was happening with disco. Um, People who were dedicated to dance music as an art form felt really uncomfortable. You probably don't know this about me, but I turned down I turned down superstars. I turned down uh, Aretha Franklin. I turned down Barbara Streisand. I turned down these big stars. I turned down Frank Sinatra, who I used to work for, because they
Wow.
wanted to do a Frank Sinatra disco record. And I said, no, that would be perpetrating. So that word perpetrating became very important to us as artists. But when hip hop developed right after disco, and people were asking me to do a lot of hip hop records, and I said, no, man, I don't want to perpetrate. I want to stay true to my form of R&B, because that's really what disco was for me. It was R&B that you could dance to, that really appealed to an international audience. So we tried our lyrics. Um, we tried to do lyrics that meant something to everybody, but you could take away your own meaning. So I never wanted to perpetrate. I never wanted to talk about, you know, 16 in the clip and one in the hole. That's not that's not who I am. I'm not talking about Lamborghini rolling. I'm not that guy. I never wanted to perpetrate. So when, and you know, believe me, all these dudes are my friends. I mean, you know, I was so down with Public Enemy and all the early hip hop artists, you know, African Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash. I mean, these are my boys. shit, Melly Mel, to this very day. These, you know, so many of these guys are my best friends. But as much as they wanted me to do music and beats for them, and I said, you know, that's your art form. I don't want to invade your space as much as I want Big Hit Records.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Rappers Delight was fine. You know, you guys do Rappers Delight. Take my shit. I'm cool.
You were saying then that when you started making music, it was R&B. So how did it become disco? What was was it just a moment when it flipped to disco and everyone put it under that category of disco? Because I didn't really know that you came from that angle.
No. We had nothing to do with it. It's just people called us that. I hate to say it because I don't mean this in a negative way, but I consider myself black. Like I just call myself a black person because that's the era I grew up in. But if I'm walking down the street and somebody says, "Hey, nigga," that's not how I think of me. That's just what they said. And even when one of my friends who say it affectionately and say, "Yo, what's up, my nigga? I love you," I get the difference. But if I say who I am, I say I'm black. So one day, people called our music disco. We never branded it that. And I'm going to be honest with you, the very first time Bernard and I ever embraced our music as disco in a category um, is after Disco Sucks, because all of those people who had made tens of millions of dollars on us, now all of a sudden we were branded with the scarlet letter of disco across our chest, and no one even wanted to deal with us. Now we were coming off of the biggest records of the era. As a matter of fact, Le Freak is still the biggest selling single in the history of Atlantic Records. And, and that's the label with everyone from Led Zeppelin to Bruno Mars to Ray Charles to Aretha Franklin. The biggest record is Freak Out. So when Disco Sucks happened in the summer of 79, and now all of a sudden no one wanted to answer our phone calls, that's when we started to call ourselves a disco band, because we said, you know what? You now don't want to talk to us because you've branded us as something that we never wanted to be perpetrators. Buy a Chic album. Is a Chic album a disco album? No, a Chic album is an R&B album, just like Earth, Wind, and Fire. We have a dance tune or two. We have a ballad. Every Chic album has a ballad. And every Chic album is the same format. It's basically our new show, right? So we have a song on it that would be the song that we come out on stage to. Like the first album had Strike Up the Band, second album had Do 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 to Do Chic Cheer, third album had Open Up, and if you saw, that's the beginning of our show. Yeah. And the album followed an arc, and that was our story. When we did our fourth album, which was after, Good Times, and think about it, we had two pop number ones on the Billboard charts in the year 1979. But by the end of that same year, no one would even answer our phone except rock people, like rock and roll people. Who answered my phone?
How did it make you feel that something you were so good at just was swept to the side? No, we're not interested now. Did you just think, right, I'm going to fight through this, or did you feel like hurt at the time yourself? We
were very hurt, but we had a savior. We had Diana Ross. We had already signed the contract. Had we not signed the contract, I swear to you, I think Berry Gordy would have fired our asses right on the spot.
Really?
Because, oh my God, Disco Sucks. You had to have been in America at the time.
Right.
Because Berry Gordy was running a label that was known for being a label that spoke to the world. It was a Black-owned label, but they appealed to everybody. Motown was the universal label for the world. And now his biggest star, Diana Ross, was getting ready to do a record with these disco guys who were now persona non grata. Like, oh my God. But it was like, Mr. Gordy, we have a contract.
All right. Yeah. So you were, yeah, amazing.
So we did it, and they took the album away from us. they probably were trying to look for every reason to not put out Diana Ross's disco album. But because the law was on our side, and I really also think, forget the law, the truth is that I believe music was on our side. That after a while, they were listening and listening, because you have to remember, the Chic organization, we are really independent. No one tells us what to do. No one comes in the studio. I'm sure you've heard the horror stories about, a guy like Clive Davis coming in and telling, Whitney Houston or whomever is producing her, or all the different mega stars that were under Clive's tutelage or banners. Clive coming in and saying this. When I did the Thompson Twins, I saw Clive Davis one time, and he never set foot in the studio again.
Really?
Hell no. No. When I did Madonna Like a Virgin, her manager, Freddie DeMann, I may have seen him twice. I do not believe it's my relationship with my artist, and don't come in and tell us what to do. I think that intrinsically my artist knows what they want, and it's up to me to help them figure that out. So don't come in there as their boss and manager or record label and saying, hey, no, it should say. I mean, he even said to me, and I love Freddie, he played to me Thriller. Madonna and I are sitting there, we play Like a Virgin, he played Thriller. He says, you have anything that sounds like this? And I looked at Freddie and I said, Freddie, Michael's been a star his entire life. He earned the right to make Thriller. We have to earn the right to make something like that. We're making Like a Virgin, touch for the very, and give us 20 more years of that. Then let Madonna drop Thriller.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think the proof's in the pudding. 500 million album sales later, I think you were right to just stick with your own ideas. I want to skip forward, to 2014, and obviously you're a multi-winning Grammy Award winner, and you won it with Daft Punk. And I'm kind of confused how that was your first time winning a Grammy. In my head, I think you've got about 20 on the shelf. So I don't know, until I had to double check it. I was like, this doesn't make any sense, because you've got these ridiculous records that you made that are probably more relevant now than they were back then.
So that's what Daft Punk and Pharrell said to me. So Pharrell was sat right next to me, right? So we were right behind Guy-Man and Thomas, right? So we're here, and Pharrell was right next to me, and when we won the first Grammy, now they had won one earlier in the night in a different ceremony. So they had already had one under their belt. And when we finally got that first one, and I sat back down in my seat, I said, well, bro, I thank you so much, guys. This is it. I'm going to probably go back to my dressing room now, because I got to go to the other ceremony and whatever. And Pharrell looked at me and said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, yeah, this is my first Grammy, and this is amazing. Thank you, guys. This is like it. And they were like, you didn't get a Grammy for Let's Dance? No, you didn't get a Grammy for We Are Family? No, you didn't get a Grammy for You didn't get a Grammy for Diana? No. And I kept saying, you don't understand. Let's Dance was up against Thriller. Nobody's going to get a Grammy for Thriller. I said, it was just, it was timing, and you don't realize that the greatest gift I think I could have ever gotten in the form of, say, something like a Grammy is not to have 25 of them, but the fact that we got Album of the Year for
incredible
a dance album.
Incredible.
The first time it had happened since Saturday Night Fever.
It's incredible, yeah. And it's it just shows what you were saying then, the reason why back then you're up against Thriller, you're up against these ridiculous records,
Yeah.
And it's all about timing as well. That, like you say, like Pharrell was saying, he was so confused, like I was, that I can't in my head, think that it was the first time. It was just insane. But you got there, and it was probably one of the best records. I think it got Record of the Year, didn't it, as well?
We won Record of the Year and Album of the Year. And what was really great is really Album of the Year, because we know that look, I grew up in this business, right? So I'm not saying things that you probably have not heard a million times,
Yeah.
but the way that black music is treated compared to pop music, which to me is weird. To me, I think it's all pop music. But the way that black acts are treated, unless you just happen to be the absolute rarefied air greatest person walking the earth like Stevie Wonder or something, or Michael Jackson, it's not really fair. Like, you don't have to be the white equivalent of Michael Jackson to win an album of the year. You don't have to be the white equivalent of Stevie Wonder to win album of the year. But to be Daft Punk and Pharrell and Nile and all the people who contributed to that
Yeah.
album for a dance record to win album of the year, honestly, you feel like President Obama. You're like,
Yeah,
damn.
it's amazing. What
Yeah.
was what I can imagine. Just you're smiling now so much, thinking, talking about it. It's um, how obviously from the people watching as well, from my side, the electronic side, Daft Punk are up there where you are. They're like legends in the same place. But how was the process working with these guys and working with Pharrell and them all together to come up with that record, Get Lucky? Because it's, I think it's one of the most played records on radio here still.
Yeah, I read an article a few months ago, and they were playing. I guess people love charts and things like that, and they were playing the biggest records of the last decade. And I loved it how Pharrell had number one and number two or three. He had number one with Happy, and he had number two or three, Get Lucky. I was like, damn, go ahead, Pharrell. Um, you know. I, I don't want to make light of this because this to me is a really noble job. I got in the music business as a studio musician, and my job was to walk into a studio, never having heard the music before. The producer either gives me a chart or plays it for me, and I write down a simple chart that I could follow that corresponds to the music that I'm hearing for the first time in my life. And I'm almost certain, and I don't want to say something that's not true, but when the guys from Daft Punk called me, well, we have been trying to get together for at least 20 years. When they did their first album, if you open up the cover of Daft Punk's first album, what do you see laying on the floor? A Chic album.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you're right.
so they invited me to their listening party of their first album, and I remember hearing this record called Defunct.
Yeah, Defunct.
And I was like going, oh man, that is the bomb.
Yeah.
Doom, doom. And they were like going, they said, well, now this is like our special tribute to Bernard Edwards because my partner had just died.
Yeah.
Right before then, I hear doom, 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 doom. And I'm like going, okay, I get it. I get it. And they're at this point, they're brand new. There's someone, it's like a decent, like they're giving me love and props and I'm respectful and I'm like thanking them. But meanwhile, in the room are all people that I know because they're having the party in New York. So I'm talking to all these people and they're trying to talk to me, tell me how much they're down with me. So then for the next 20 years, every time I go to France, I try and hook up with them. They were on Virgin. I call the people at Virgin and say, hey, I'm in town, man. Hook me up with Guy-Man and Thomas, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sure now. Oh, shit. They're stuck in Saint-Tropez and we're having a pastry strike. And when we have a strike in France, nobody breaks the picket lines, so the trains aren't running. You're having a pastry strike and the trains aren't running? I said, damn, that's how America used to be. We don't even have strikes anymore. I was like, okay. So I'll see them next time. Then next time I'll come and say, aha, I'll go to Saint-Tropez and ambush them. Oh, they're in Paris and we're having a railroad strike. And so this went on for like 20 years. So finally they come to America where we don't have strikes anymore. Not really, They come to America and say, hey, now we're in New York. Oh, cool, thanks. Can we come to your apartment and play some demos for you? Sure. they come to my apartment, and they have, I believe, cassettes, and maybe they had a CD. I don't know. Maybe he had his thumb drive or something. But what I remember about the meeting were two things. My girlfriend took a picture, and they said, "Please don't take a picture of our faces." And she was like, "Okay, cool, no problem." My girlfriend's a professional photographer. She was like, "Oh, this actually looks cool." So it's there, me with a jazz guitar. And the other thing I remember is them saying that we want to make a record that pays tribute to the music as if the internet didn't exist. And I went, I love people who talk like that. I swear to you, as an artist, I love people who talk in a conceptual, opaque way, because I know once I cut through that, there's a real message there. And it's now my job to figure out what the hell these French dudes are talking about. So I don't even think I honestly, if you ever get a chance, or if you can read up about let Get Lucky, I honestly don't believe. Now they may tell a different story, but I don't think I even asked them to play the demos for me, because I love their story so much. We just hung out at my apartment, had a great time. I started playing jazz or something, and we were just talking. I was like, I don't need to hear demos. I'm a studio musician. I'll get there, and you guys write out the music, and or whatever. Or I'll write it out. And I honestly, my only remember, my only memory of that session was it was in the exact same room that we cut the very first Chic hit record, Dance, Dance, Dance. And I said to Thomas, I said, dude, you're standing exactly in the same spot that Bernard Edwards was standing in when I was sitting over here playing Dance, Dance, Dance. And he said to me, you cut that here? And I said, yeah. He said, shit. And I said, well, let me show you. I said, turn off everything and just let me play to the drums. Yeah. And I played my groove. Did I lose you? Oh, okay. So I said, turn off everything and just let me play to the drums. I wrote out a little chart, and it's just a 4-chord progression. And I just started playing. And then after I played that, they said, hey man, make sure you bring the clear guitar to the session. They said, because we love the clear Strat. When we were kids, we watched you play. So I brought the clear Strat. I then double tracked that, and then I started playing a single note part, because now we had the drums and my guitar, and then I started playing or something like that along with it, and that was it. And to them, that was like amazing. Then they said, well, here, do that to this. And they gave me another song. I played along with that. And they gave me another song. And I played along with that. And then I said, guys, I got to go because I got something to do. I don't think I was an Electric Lady longer than 4 hours, maybe 4 hours, maybe 3 hours, because typically Black records, which I call R&B and dance records, Black records, are made in 3 hours, like 3-4 hours. So I did all 3 songs in like no time at all. And they are so good at what they do that by them having that amount of information that fast, they went home and probably organized the demo. Then Pharrell went over to Paris and he said, hey man, what are you guys into? As we all do when we're first working with an artist, because we want to know what our job is. And they said, man, well, we're into this. Oh no, it was the other way around. The robots asked Pharrell, what is he into? He said, well, I'm sort of into this Nile Rodgers stuff right now. And they looked at each other and smiled, and they said, well, check this out. Boom, you're in the Nile Rodgers. Here it is. We got brand new original stuff with Nile Rodgers. And Pharrell heard it, and that's where the melody came from. We're up all night to get lucky. It's that. After him, he played that. He sang that after he heard it on the guitar, because it didn't exist until I played that note. And that note part. And had I not played that and just played rhythm, I'm not sure what the song would be or if that melody would even exist.
Yeah, but it came out perfect though, the whole record.
It was great because it shows what we all do. If you ask Pharrell, he doesn't even remember doing it because he was so jet lagged or something. They gave him some medication. You know, French people are awesome. When you go to France and you go to the emergency room, and the young doctor walked in and he pushed my leg real hard, and I jumped, but I didn't jump out of my skin. And I said, "What the hell was that?" He said, "Well, I just wanted to be broken." He said, "So it's not. So here, take this." And he gave me ketamine. I was like, "Awesome, vitamin K." He said, "I guarantee you, you're going to be able to play that show and you're going to be fine." And next thing you know, I had this whole supply that I wound up giving it to all these different artists for like the next 2 or 3 years. No kidding. And people were calling, "Hey, no, you got any more of that French stuff?"
Do you prefer the studio or do you prefer playing live? If you like, you know, it's a question that I get asked when for DJing or producing it. I just want to know what it's like from your point of view, because it's, you know, you obviously became really famous for producing some of the greatest artists that came, but I don't know inside, do you get excited to go on the road or do you get excited more to go in the studio?
The funny truth about me is that I always love what I'm not doing more, because when I'm in the studio, I go, Jesus Christ, I can't wait to get on the road. When I'm on the road, I go, oh, Jesus, this is such a pain in the butt. Let's get home and write some music. And I think that that's probably what makes me love music to this day. I'm just as excited. I told you, I'm still chasing that high of walking into a club and going, what? You know, and hearing something that I did, you know, in the studio or at home, hearing it for the first time outside of my own environment and hearing somebody else relate to it. You know, I loved it when people had their cars, you know, like maxed out with mega speakers, and you just hear somebody driving down the street from like a quarter of a mile away, and you go, oh shit. I mean, how many hip artists probably went, that's my, you stop your friend and go, that's my playing. You know, so my equivalent of that is walking into a club and going, what? That's what me and Carl Cox did that the other day, you know.
Yeah. But it's,
you know,
it's funny that you just said then you're chasing the same thing. Is when you're getting bored of the road, then you want to go to the studio. But I said to myself after lockdown of, you know, we do like 100 shows a year, like DJing and stuff. I said I will never complain about a delayed flight. I will never complain about shitty airport food. I will never complain. But it's going to be like that for the first 6 months that it comes back, and then we go back to complaining.
Exactly. I was going to say that. You know, in America, when we had the 9/11 tragedy, you know, when the airplanes were crashed into the World Trade Center, I was so shocked at how peaceful and loving New York City had become. You know, I'm really old school. I'm a hippie. I'm a tree hugger. I'm like, yo, I love you. I love everybody. And I am that guy. I can't help it. I was socialized to care about people. So when I saw everybody acting nice, and it was like a dream come true. It was like out of this horrible chaos came beautiful order. And it was incredible to me. And then I remember one day I was crossing the street at 34th Street, and a woman walked out in front of a car. And the guy said, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, oh, wow. I hadn't heard that in 2 months or something. And that was it. It was all over. From that moment on, when he screamed at that woman crossing in front of him, it started to all of a sudden go back to the way it was. And our memory only lasted for about 2 months. And I'm telling you, that sentiment played out all around the world. When I would go to another city and people would say, "Where are you from?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm from New York." And he'd go, "Oh, New York. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Did you have anyone who died in the tragedy?" "Well, yeah, actually I did, but Oh man, yeah, you know. So I hear where you're coming from. For a couple of months, we're going to be like, oh God, it's so great to be gigging.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to my first.
I'll take the middle seat. I'll take the middle seat. It's fine.
Right, I'll take the middle seat and the food I didn't order.
one of them, one of our mutual friends, Ian Woodall, a good friend of yours.
Yeah.
He got me onto your podcast, Deep Hidden Meaning, and I have to say it's one of the best podcasts I've heard through lockdown. You know, I've never, you know, he told me about it about 2 or 3 months ago. I said, oh, I think I've got Niall on the show. I was like, I need to listen to everything. Tell me everything that he's doing right now. And he put me to this podcast. And, you know, how did that come about? You know, the creative behind it. What made you decide to start it?
So I was, you know, I was getting friendly with everybody over at Apple, and I'm not really. Oh, I know. Oh, because yeah, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. What that? So I wrote my autobiography some 10 or 11 years ago, whatever, or it was published. And so I was over at Apple because I knew that Apple was now going into the OTT business big time, you know, bigger than just Beats. It was going to be, you know, Apple TV, Apple.
Hello?
When I heard they were going into OTT business, um, I said, well, I think I'd like to do my book as a television show. And I met with them and we had a great time. And next thing you know, one meeting led to the next. Go to Apple, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. And then people were really cordial. They sent like teams down to my hotel room to talk about this idea. But in the course of talking about that, somehow I got word that they were going into Apple Radio. And I thought to myself, well, maybe a good preamble to doing the television series is to actually talk about how other composers, how we actually all have the same thing in common, that my story may be a little bit unique just because of the people, but the thing that drives us, and wait till you hear, I'm really letting the cat out of the bag. Apple's probably going to fire me, which is okay.
I very much doubt it.
Well, wait till you hear Paul McCartney. They have an announcement. Fuck it, Paul McCartney. Wait till you hear this one, because the first song I ever learned to play on guitar was "A Day in the Life" by the Beatles, right? So it was such an honor for me to tell Paul McCartney, "Do you know what I felt like when I was playing President Obama's last party, and I look up and who do I see standing in front of me? Paul McCartney and his wife, and Paul is singing every Chic song. He's out there, he and his wife, he's out there in a dance circle, and I could see his mouth going, I want your love, I want your love." And I'm like, what? Paul McCartney is singing my Scarlet Letter disco bullshit? Sang every song. And I'm looking at Paul McCartney and I'm like going, this is magical and sick. Like the biggest songwriter of our lifetime is singing my song. Like, and you don't know how that touched me, because I Want Your Love is the only song that I actually dreamt. I dreamt that whole arrangement, note for note, except for the last part where the strings go up an octave.
Can I just stop you there for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
My favorite break in any record that you've ever done was from 3 minutes and 22 seconds to 6 minutes 11. There's not one vocal in it. The string arrangement is insane. And I don't think you could write a record like that nowadays because the kids don't have the patience.
Right. That Mark Ronson always laughs and he says, I remember when I first heard The Freak, and he says, and the middle 8 came, and then it was a middle 16, and then it was a middle 32. It's like, and all you did was go, now freak. And then you go, I said freak. and the band is just playing and the strings are just ascending. And I said, yeah, because in the clubs, we knew that music was the driver and lyrics were the icing on the cake. So the concept was, boom, music, music, music. Oh, and here's some lyrics to get you through it.
For me, it's constructed like kind of a house record, that one. You know, I know we're going off to tangent at the moment. We're talking about the show, but I Want Your Love is my favorite Chic record. It's probably my most favorite break in music, because if I was to go in the studio and write a record and for basically 3 minutes go off and just play instrumental, people would be like, what the fuck are you doing? But you did it in a way that was so good that, you know, that's my favorite part of the record now.
It's like, and to think what that means to me as a composer, to have dreamt it. Like I saw, when I woke up, I had manuscript paper next to my bed. And I woke up from the dream and I said, let me put this down real quick before I forget it. And what was amazing is that everything was there. I was just not, except the bass line. Bass line is Bernard's, cannot take credit for that. That was him. We, you know, the band, we played it. He walked in, he heard it, like, whoa, holy, and he jumped right into it. But every note, I mean, honestly, every single note, except that last bit where the horns go, then the strings go up an octave, the whole section.
I'm going to make you get the guitar out in a minute.
Right. And, the concert master said to me, hey, Niall, what if the strings go up an octave there? I said, that's a great idea. So that's not written. They just transposed it up an octave. But it was great that he suggested that. But that whole thing was a dream, and it was a real dream. It was, I hate to say it, the girl that I was in love with at the time, her best friend swept me off my feet. I was like hit by a lightning bolt, and I couldn't even tell her that I had to write it in a song, because the girl that I was going out with was just wonderful. She helped with the whole Chic concept. She taught us all about fashion. I would have never written the lyric Halston, Gucci, Fiorucci had it not been for her. She worked at Fiorucci. It was like, wow. Right. And just think, you know, that's the first time ever in history any fashion designers have ever been name checked in a pop song, ever, except for one obscure French song that I tracked down. But if you go back and you listen to any American music, the only name checking has been done about cars. They were like crazy about my Mercury and driving along in my automobile or something like that. Yeah. But they said, I'm wearing, whereas now, can you even listen to a pop record without them saying, my underwear was, whatever. You know. I did it on one song, guys. It wasn't a thing. It was just supposed to be to describe, the black urban professional movement, the upward motion of blacks who are now working on Wall Street. And I superimposed that concept onto Sister Sledge. They had no idea what Halston was or Gucci, let alone Fiorucci. They lived in Philadelphia. There's no Fiorucci in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I had the girls about 10 years ago play for me in my hometown, and they were amazing. You know, that whole album that you produced them was just insane. Absolutely insane.
Ever done.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I kind of heard that you're a hoarder, or you realized that you're a hoarder, and that you decided for charity that you were going to sell off your car collection and your guitar collection, which is amazing. What was the day that you decided, right, that's it, I'm going to just, everything I don't need, I'm going to make sure it goes to a good cause?
Yeah, I'm selling off not just the car collection, which one of them is already gone. Then I realized I did it the wrong way, but this guy got a jewel. He paid nothing for it.
Is that the yellow Range Rover?
Yellow Range Rover, which is like so unique, but it's all good. I mean, he's happy. It's up in Canada. We just had a big snowfall. Boom, you got it, bro. I know you. That's for sure. But the thing is that 26 years ago, I decided I was leaving the music business because I was drinking and drugging so much that I knew my life was in danger. I wasn't really afraid of that because I had actually, my heart stopped. I always say 8 times, but that's a lie. My heart stopped 7 times. The 8th time, it kept going. But, you know, but I didn't know because I woke up and to me, I was just asleep. I didn't understand how somebody had snuck in and redecorated my apartment. I'm like, where these like fluorescent lights come from? So to me, I had no memory of dying or anything like that. But the doctors stuck around to explain to me how hard they tried to, how hard they worked to save my life. And I felt guilty for about 2 weeks until I was driving down the street and somebody said, "Hey, I got to hit a Coke." And I was, okay, cool. But a few years later, it was Madonna's 38th birthday party, I believe. And we were down in Miami Beach. And I was working with a brilliant Cuban artist. And I had gone to his gig. And of course, he asked me to play. I was really high. I had a fabulous date. And, you know, and I don't know, man. So I got out on stage, started doing all these tricks, playing guitar behind my back and behind my neck, and crowd was bugging out. So to me, I'm killing it. I had no idea that this guy recorded every single thing. He's the most anal artist ever. It's probably why he's so damn good. So I go to Madonna's house, so high. I'm actually the last person to leave. Me and Mickey Rourke were in the bathroom, like getting lit all night. Finally, the next morning, Madonna, I don't even remember her saying this, but I carried out by, there was a boy band in England at the time. I forget what they were called. I think called Central Line or Northern Line or something like that. And then there was this guy named, he went by the name of Rico Suave, but that's not his real name. Oh, I'm sorry, bro.
I don't know. It's all right. It's okay.
Senior moment. But he and these dudes carried me, literally carried me to my hotel. I got back to my hotel, and after they left, I climbed out the window to get more Coke. And when I did that, I met these 2 beautiful girls, and they robbed me.
No way.
They stole all the Coke and put guns to my head or something like that. I get back to my hotel, and I order more Coke. It was crazy. It was insane. And I knew that night, well, I didn't know that night, but the next day when I showed up for work, the artist that I had jammed with had recorded my performance. He played it back to me. I thought I was going to hear the most incredible stuff ever. Instead, I heard garbage. I was like, oh my God. I was so embarrassed that I could do that. I felt like I had betrayed everyone who had helped me become who I'd become. And one instant, I said, I'm never drinking. I'm never getting high again. And then I read a magazine article with Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. And you must know how famous he is for getting high. That was his thing. And reading this magazine article, and he says he's giving up drugs because he feels that it's affecting his music playing. And would he rather have drugs or music? And I read that and I said, damn, I know Keith. He lives in the next town over from me in Connecticut. I said, if Keith can give it up, I can give it up. So long story short, I checked myself into a rehab. Here's the punchline. The day I get out of the rehab, which was like 8 months later or something, because I never wanted to leave, and I was rich enough to pay for it, I get out of the rehab and I go to our local restaurant to pick up some takeaway food. And the maitre d' says to me, hey, Niall, here's a good friend. He wants to talk to you for a minute. And it was Keith Richards on the phone going, hey, Niall, man, you got a bump? I was like, dude, I gave it up because of you. I gave it up because of you. How do you even know I'm out of the hospital? How do you even know I went into the house? What are you talking about? I never looked back. It's 26 years ago. Never had another drink.
I love stories like that. Love it. And, you know, I did it for 6 months about maybe like 8 years ago, I went sober for a whole season in Ibiza, you know, and came back and everything was in moderation and blah, blah, blah. But when I wasn't and I was going on stage, I felt a little bit different. Did you feel the same when you first came back and you went live? You feel like there's something missing. There's something, and you can have this conversation because you play live, I play on stage and DJ. There's something missing, isn't there, at first? It takes a good few months to get it, through, to understand how to play.
It took me one song.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know, honestly, I was terrified, but I had to do it. See, sometimes your heart forces you to do something that your head says you can't do. A good friend of mine had dropped dead at a club. So we went back to that club to have a memorial. And his mother was there. Paul Simon was there. He was doing Paul Simon's show on Broadway. He was a great friend of mine. He had done a film with me. He was just so awesome. And he never had a drink in his life. He had an aneurysm and it burst and he dropped dead right on the dance floor. So now we went on that same dance floor to pay him. So we play the first song. I don't even remember what it was, but all I know is when the song ended, I screamed out to this room full of people who were mourning and also happy because we play happy music, right? So we finished the song, and I swear to you, these are the words that came out of my mouth. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say, this was dedicated to our friend. I went, I belong out here. And the band was looking at me like, what the hell is he talking about? Because I was so preoccupied with being terrified because I had never been on stage without a drink, ever.
It's like, because it's like people that smoke, they need to have a cigarette in their hand, or they need to have a drink in their hand. It's like a mental thing, and it's the same as when I was going to work. It's like you need to have something there that you're used to. It's just, but yeah, I'm 26 years. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And and in your business, it's really tough because almost all my DJ friends drink their asses off because they have it lined, and honestly, that's how my drum riser was. I had Heineken styrofoam cups filled with Heineken all around the drum riser after every song. Sometimes if we just go to a break, it's like, okay, to a break. All my DJ friends, because the record's playing there. Like, I remember, one of my closest friends was Avicii, and God, Tim, man, I miss the dude so much. Yeah. And I think that Tim was thrust into a world that he never expected, because I don't really think Tim, just like I said, I never wanted to be a perpetrator. I don't think Tim considered himself a DJ. He was a composer and producer who actually was fortunate enough to be able to play his own music for people. And that was incredible. So he was out there, and maybe in his own mind, he was, believe me, I'm making this shit up because I don't know, because we never talked about this, but I could see how he would feel when other DJs would diss him because he hadn't been DJing for years. He just broke out of nowhere, and next thing you know, he's playing to 70 and 80,000 people. So
it was sad because I knew Tim quite well, and he used to come to my shows. And where I came through, not from my music, from my DJing, like the early days of DJing wasn't about producing. It was just playing records, other people's records. Right. Where he came in, produced amazing records that crossed over in the charts, and was thrown into a situation and didn't go through the whole, I went from playing at weddings and bars and restaurants. His first gig was probably in front of X amount of people. So he got thrown in straight at the deep end.
Right.
Yeah.
And it really used to, God, man. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It really was very difficult for him to accept all the negative criticism that was being laid against him from other, lifelong DJs who had to go through the ropes and build an audience and what have you. And I kept saying, guys, you should talk to the brother, because I don't know if he thinks of him. He was just a reflection of the times. He made music that he could actually go out and perform himself. Just like me, I made music that I could actually go out and perform myself. I was the luckiest guy in the world to walk into a club and hear everybody dance, and then my record company tell me, well, now you have to go out and support that. Really? Okay, great. Let's go do that. Because we made more money doing that than making the record. So it was, our lives were similar in that, DJs who create their music and then get to perform it, that's an incredible thing. But anyway, I know I'm gone a little off path here.
No, but they're quite similar stories, because you were lucky because you could have ended that way if your heart didn't start again. So you were in that path. You were in that path because, regardless of how unhappy or happy you were, it could have been the same story, the outcome, but it wasn't, which is obviously...
I was pretty happy.
I'm happy. I'm very happy.
I was
very happy. It's and yeah, and you, like I said, the one thing I loved about Tim, and I say this to everyone, it's a sad story. It just shows you now that we have to learn from our mistakes, that people now have to stop the abuse when it comes to a musical category you might not like. I might not like this music. I might not like that music, but just don't say anything. If you don't, the best thing to do is don't say anything. And then we could have still had a huge talent on this planet.
Man, we all have different stories, right? That's what I talk about on my show. We all have different stories, but when you paste it all together, what's the thing that we have in common? We love the music.
Yeah, exactly.
What you like my music, that doesn't mean anything. I like it. And there are millions of other people who like it. So respect them and their taste. You don't have to like it. Believe me, I don't expect everybody to like my records. My manager tells me that one of the first records he ever bought was the first Chic single, Dance, Dance, Dance. But he hated the part that went, Yowza, yowza, yowza. He said, I hated that part. But that's the record I love. And I say to him now, well, do you dig the Yowza part now? A few $1 million later, you like it now? Is it cool? But anyway, getting back to hoarding and selling off my collection, I quit the music business because I was afraid of doing drugs and drinking. I didn't think that I could do it without it. And one day, Michael Jackson called me and asked me to play on the record that would become history. And I didn't want to do it because I kept thinking, the most dangerous place in the world would me being in the studio with the king of pop. Are you kidding me? The coke is going to come out and the hookers are like, no, I am not doing it. So I said to Michael, whom I've always had, I've known Michael since we were kids. Before we were Chic, we had a band called New York City. We had a big hit record when I'm doing fine now, do, 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 without you, baby. So that record was huge for us for a long time. The Pasadenas did not make that record first. They covered. That was our shit. So years later, the one is the Pasadenas, but we did that.
Way. I never knew that.
1972. This is 1972. So the Jackson 5's first world tour was in 1973. And we were on the tour bus, and I used to always sit next to Michael because I'd read comics to him. And so we've been friends, tangentially since then. But, we ran in different circles. And one day, now this is after his big solo record broke, a girl who was dying of brain cancer, the Make-A-Wish Foundation called up and said her dying wish would be to go to a Michael Jackson show. Well, Michael Jackson hadn't done it. This was the first show for Off the Wall tour. So I called up Michael, and he not only invited us to the show, but gave us like seats that were right there. And then he did something extraordinary. Before the show started, Michael walked out and came and grabbed me and the little girl by the hand and took us backstage. When we finally came back to our seats, everybody from Mike Tyson to Michael Jordan, I don't even know, like all these big stars, there was like a receiving line to give this girl gifts because they didn't know who she was. She had a like a plate on her head, you know, for the brain tumor or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And this girl, it was just unbelievable. So when Michael called me to play it on History and I told him no, he couldn't believe it. I was saying no. He didn't know about me, you know, drug stuff and me being terrified to be in the
Yeah.
studio. And then, and it's not because Michael was doing drugs, it's just because imagine the setting. The king of pop and me going into a studio together. It was just a matter of seconds before all the dealers would say, "Hey, I hear you're in the studio with Michael." Hey, so I kept telling him no, and he called back again. I said no again. Then the third time he called back, and all I could think about was this poor girl whose dying wish. And not only did he fulfill it, he did it in a way that was spectacular. And so I go down to the studio and I say to him, I said, Michael, look, okay, I will come and play, but here are my conditions. You have to send a car for me. I'm going to sit out in front of the studio. When you need me to play, I'm going to run upstairs. You know me, bro. I'll finish this part in, what, 5-10 minutes, 20 tops. I'm going to go downstairs. You listen to it. You tell me if it's right. When you tell me it's right, I'm going to go home. I go up, I play the part because Michael knows what he wants. He sang it to me. I played it, whatever it was. Went downstairs to wait for him. He came downstairs. He said, hey, now come on back up. And I thought, damn, I messed that up. I played exactly what you sang, but okay. So I go back up and he talks to me, and his first words then at that point were, oh, how's that girl? And I said, Michael, she died a week later. And then I told him about the note that she had written. She wrote me and she said, Niall, I thanked God for giving me brain cancer because that night was the greatest night of my life, and no one else on earth could have ever experienced anything like that. And if God had not given me brain cancer, I would not have met you, and I would not have met Michael and all of those people. And when I told him that, I didn't have the girl's note memorized verbatim, but he got the gist of it. And I said to him, Michael, that's the only reason why I'm here, because I can't ever really say no to you. Those first two no's was before I thought it through. But, you know, so I just was afraid. And then I decided that the only way I could stay attached to the music business was just buying musical stuff. So I just went out and bought a huge guitar collection. I bought like cars that I thought rock stars would drive around. And it was just dumb. And the next thing I know, I just had all this stuff that is just sitting there, and now it deserves to be played by someone who can appreciate this level of quality of guitar and these cars that are unique. And you know, and that's it. I just, the real part of the story was Michael Jackson brought me back into the music business, because once I played on History and didn't take coke and got in the car and left, I went, hey, I could go play records and don't take coke. Hey, I could go do concerts like I did for my friend and don't drink and don't do it. So those two events brought me back into the music business, and it's been an incredible life because now I'm writing for the Royal Philharmonic. I'm just finished up Coming to America with Burna Boy and John Legend. It's killing. I have a great life. It's awesome.
So you've had two parts. You've had the first part, and now you've got the second part, and they're both just as extraordinary.
It's you know, and the truth is that my life without drugs and all the craziness, I now work, even though I thought that then was absurd. It's even more absurd now. I'm doing, maybe I might have 100 records come out next year.
Wow.
Yeah, sure.
Wow. It's been amazing talking to you. And I want to do a quote from John Taylor from Duran Duran. And he said in an interview, when Niall was in the room, shit happens. And the interview today with you is exactly how I feel. It's been so nice having you on the show and taking you away from your busy schedule. And just with everything that's going on and you're touring at the moment, where is the next thing? Are you going to be doing streaming at all so we can see you, or are we going to, you know, how can we?
Yeah, we've did a couple of things like that. I guess so. I guess you missed my great Nordhoff Robbins special 2 nights ago.
Yeah, I was traveling. Sorry.
Don't worry, it's on YouTube. You can watch it for 4 days. It may not be your cup of tea either, but so yeah, I did that. Played with Chic and also played a really cool thing with Rebecca Ferguson that no one ever gets to see me play.
But was
People,
Rebecca Ferguson, was she from Liverpool?
yeah.
Yeah, she was. I know this. Yeah, I remember her. She was on one of the TV shows
Right,
in
right,
the UK.
right.
Yeah.
She's an incredible talent, man. It's like I just wrote her this morning because she and I are writing a couple of songs, and I just said, you know, I'm in awe of your talent. It's just it's when you see us do the thing for Nordhoff Robbins, that microphone that she's singing through, that little cheap microphone, that's her, man. Like no. That man, ain't no auto tune happening. She can do that all day long. And she just went out and bought a cheap little mic. And I'm sitting in front of like a guitar that's worth like $100,000. And no one sees me play those kind of jazz guitars. And I'm sitting there and it's just she and I. And it's just the most beautiful thing like ever. She's killing it. And, and I realized that there's a part of my life that I've somewhat neglected. In Chic, we always did a jazzy instrumental on every album, but that's if it wasn't for jazz, there would be no Let's Dance. If it wasn't for David Bowie's love of jazz, he and I probably wouldn't have locked like that the first night we met. And so I need to do a jazz album or EP just for me. Just for me. Maybe no one will like it, you know, but I'm a little stronger. I can take the criticism because I'm not the best, but I don't suck.
Totally. Well, I look forward to hearing that. And so, are you doing St. New Year's Eve? I heard New Year's Eve. Are you streaming St. New Year's Eve?
Yeah. So we did a thing yesterday. My band, we rented a club in New York. Matter of fact, a jazz club where Les Paul used to play, and we rented that club. And it's funny, you probably see this. You know, the social media is funny because people see a picture and then they start to analyze everything. Well, they don't realize they're saying like, well, the only one who's socially distant is your drummer. And then what they don't realize is that, yeah, my drummer is behind plexiglass. Yes, my bass player is behind plexiglass, but the horn players are a lot farther away from us than you think. It's a camera, right? So the singers, we're at least 7, 8 feet apart. But right before we did the take, we're all masked up. And the director goes, okay, take off your mask. And we stick them in our pockets. And then when we even took the photo, we all stopped breathing. It's like, and people don't realize, like, look at my website. Do you see that for the last year, I have been like so insane. People write and say, well, no, you shouldn't wear a mask while you're exercising and stuff like that. That's why you're huffing and puffing. And I want to say, I guess you don't exercise, bro, because without this damn mask, I'd be huffing and puffing, you idiot. Yes, puff. Yeah. That's what aerobic means. We're huffing and puffing because we're working so hard. We're trying to get that air. I'm like, guys, we are not. I have 4 of the top 5 risk factors. I am not going to risk my life to do a New Year's Eve gig. We are so cautious, and we have doctors on the set. We all had to take COVID test, the rapid test, like 4 hours before we even show up. Right? I mean, it's like, think, we do have brains. Think.
Yeah. It's
a crazy world we live in.
It is in the moment, and like I said to you, when we come back, we'll stop the complaining for a while, and I eventually will start a monthly residency in New York, and I'm going to come and find you, hopefully, and spend some time with you in person. And thank you for today. It was amazing.
Excellent.
A lot of fans on here now. A lot of fans that are just are glad to hear the honest side of everything. And I want to say something. My best friend in my DJ community is Cole Cox, and you two seem like you're from the same cloth. And I thank you for that. And it was great to have you on today.
You know how much I love. I mean,
yeah.
Anybody who I'd fly all the way to Australia. And the whole day in like some scorching heat. I was like, Carl, where the hell are we? Like, where is it? You know? I adore him. I think he's got the biggest heart. It's just such a man.
You're very similar. Just from this interview, you're very similar. You're cut from the same cloth. And thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you, bro. Pleasure.
Right. You take care.
See you again.
See ya.
Peace.
Peace. Thank you for watching, which is probably one of my favorite, as I was saying, with Nile Rodgers. That was the end of the series for this season. And this year, I hope you all have a safe and great Christmas. I hope to see you all in 2021. All right, peace.